to the cloud. Okay. I'll introduce myself. I will let you introduce yourself. I am Victoria, the Rapid Renegade. I've just discovered that I think I'm going to start calling myself a freedom facilitator. So that's a new thing. But an energetic and subconscious specialist helping people rapidly transform stress and dissolve trauma and create new beliefs and all of those fun things. And you happen to be Billy, who I got to work with. And so I would love for you to introduce yourself and kind of share a little bit about you, about maybe some of the toughest challenges that you were facing before meeting me, and
For
really
sure.
get to have that kind of behind the scenes look of maybe what were some of those challenges that you were facing.
For sure. Yeah. I'm Billy. I am 32 years old. I have two children. I have a 3-year-old and a son that is now about a year and a half old. Um, Married to my wife now for 5 years. We just had our 5-year anniversary on October 20th. So that was awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, so I mean, having a family and starting a family and kind of navigating those relationship changes and all of that was kind of where I was stuck. Um, just the stresses of being a new father, and then adding another baby on top of it, career change, buying your first home. So there was a lot of guilt I was holding on to, and just felt like I wasn't present enough with my family. And I started seeing it, affect them, which I didn't like. So I held on to a lot of guilt. So that kind of put me in the position, speaking with my cousin that also sees you as well. And she said how great it was. And I was totally in. I was like, let's do this. I'm ready. Like I need it. So
Yeah. And so when she messaged me, she was like, I need to introduce you to Billy. He quit drinking 2 months ago. He really needs to see you. And so,
mhm,
do you mind sharing kind of obviously you were going through a lot of life changes, a lot of
mhm,
new stress, a lot of new relational things. Your wife was dealing with some stuff. I think a lot of people can relate to that stage in life, right? It's like
for
I
sure.
remember being pregnant with my second one. And it was like, I was totally cool until I was like 38 weeks pregnant. And then I was like, oh my God, we're having another fucking kid. What are we going to do? My whole, like everything imploded, right? It was like a whole new reality. And there's so many people that feel that way. And then on top of it, um, you know, dealing with the aftermath of pregnancy and some of the challenges there. And how were you kind of coping through that? How were you adjusting to those life changes and to those circumstances before, we met together?
For sure. Yeah. So a little backstory, a little bit here. So our family was always, we were the partiers. We were going out. You're supposed to go out with your family, go out with your cousins, go out with your buddies. Any problem, hey, let's grab a 12 pack and we'll talk about it. So in typical fashion, I was stressed. I was overwhelmed. Um, we weren't communicating well, and I kind of pieced it together. It's like, well, I'm just drinking to kind of mask all these problems. Um, kind of like alcohol was my escape. I escaped problems, I escaped stress, anxiety, um, and it was always there for me. Like I knew it would never fail me whatsoever. Um, so I turned to alcohol, and before the second kid, um, our son, we, it was normal drinking. Well, as normal as I thought, but
As normal drinking people
yeah,
say
yeah.
normal.
So yeah, so I noticed, which was odd because right around the same time I was starting to see that 444 all the time. I had no idea what it was telling me. Uh, I would turn to alcohol and I would drink excessively, more than I would before. And it was weird because I knew it in my head, but I also didn't care at the same time.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is the only stable thing that I know how to navigate is, hey, I get to go home and drink. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, I use that for my escape, and I did for a while. And it just got to the point where the other voice in my, like other voice on the other side of my head was saying,
You're
no,
not,
yeah,
first of all, you're not crazy for having multiple voices in your head. Just
yeah,
we'll throw that out there.
yeah. That voice started getting louder. And then I started digging in to see, why I was seeing that number pattern all the time, no matter what it was, gas station, the clock, um, anywhere. Like I seen it multiple times a day. And I was like, okay, researched it and found out like it's telling you to make the leap and take, go down that path, and you have guide, follow that guidance, and it's like the spirit's like guiding you on the right journey. So I don't know how I put two and two together with how clouded I was, but I did. Um, and I ditched the alcohol, and it was about a month and a half, almost 2 months in, and I just came to, and I had all this rush of emotion. I had guilt, I had shame, I had past traumas that came up that I drank my whole life, so I never really got to process. And you can't process when you're that clouded. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
So yeah, when all that came to the forefront, I felt so overwhelmed and had literally nowhere to turn, because alcohol was my buddy. That's how
What
I
you
cope.
learned how to cope with, right? It's like
Correct.
that was your go-to coping mechanism. It's like some
Hmm.
people go to alcohol, some people go to overeating, some people go to shopping, some people go to exercising. So there's all of these different ways that we learn how to cope. And so for you, how did you see, and you kind of touched on it, like how did you see alcohol and your coping with it affect your relationships in your day-to-day life?
Oh, like massively. It was, uh, in the early mornings, my wife was postpartum. She's
Mhm.
postpartum depression, and I was honestly the loser that was too hungover to get out of bed to help her with the kids in the morning. So what that does, that causes stress between you and your wife. Kind of puts
And
a wedge
further
in.
shame and guilt, because it's like that's not really who you wanted to be. Like you and I
Correct.
talked about that as like you had a desire to be this like present, helpful, father and husband, and yet you were coping in a way that prevented you from doing it, but you had that conflict that like,
Mhm.
I know it, but I still am going to do it because I don't know what else to do. I don't know where else to turn.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I always like thought of myself. It felt like such a far distance away from me, but in my head, I was telling myself like, this is the man that you were meant to be.
Mhm.
This is how you're supposed to be acting, how you're supposed to be doing this, how you're supposed to be being a father and a husband. And it felt so far away. So that's why the drinking kept happening.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you know, to your point, it was just being hungover in the mornings, not being present with the kids in the early mornings, um, going out with my cousins, leaving my wife at home with two kids. Um, that builds a lot of guilt. And, it's so far from the person that I really am. And it was just so aggravating to me, and I could not shake it.
Yeah.
And and I guess that's why all those emotions came at that one time. It was just like, holy cow, like cut that one thing out and you're so clear minded
Yeah.
and have to deal with the issue sober. And it's like, yeah, it makes you stronger for sure.
Yeah. So dealing with these things sober, did you go, and I think you told me, were you in like traditional therapy? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you obviously tried traditional therapy. What other kind of support, or maybe how did therapy help you? But then maybe what was it missing that you were still kind of like in that battle of shame and guilt?
Yeah. So it regular therapy, I kind of was going there for like answers or like tools on how to cope with what I was going through.
Mhm.
But there was also a part of me that was like, okay, I could probably stop you right in the middle of your sentence here, and I could finish the sentence for you. I know exactly what you're going to tell me, how you're going to say it.
Yeah.
And at first I felt bad about it because it's like, oh, I'm kind of, uh, my head's big and I'm like, oh, I know all this. But yeah, for some reason I just couldn't connect with the therapist on a level what, where I wanted to connect, or they just didn't get me, I felt.
Yeah.
And they would tell me like, well, you're different. Like, you know, you're one in a million. You have like something about you that I can't put my finger on. Um, and the one even told me, it was like, yeah, it's gonna be kind of hard to help you. You seem to be so different. And then I knew, I was like, maybe this isn't for me. I need something else, someone that can connect with me on a higher level.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I did try it. It didn't do much for me. And so
Yeah.
I felt even more lost after that. I was like,
Right.
these people can't figure me out. I don't know who can.
Right. Like you're paid professionals. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was
So
very confused.
yeah. And I know you talked to your cousin.
Uh-huh.
And so when she was explaining like what I do, like what was it that really kind of piqued your interest to be like, I want to try that? Like what did she kind of explain to you as far as the benefit of the work that I do?
For sure, yeah. So with her, she's been my go-to throughout like all of this because she gets me
Mm,
on that level I was speaking about. It's more of like a spiritual level,
mm,
and like explaining to me like how energy works and how to tap into it and how to redirect your thoughts. And the more we talked, she was like, yeah, I learned it from her. From her.
mm.
You gotta do this rapid release. It's so nice. It's like she helped me tremendously. And I know when she says that, like that holds weight with me.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, yeah, like sign me up
I'm
100%. Like,
in.
I want this. Yeah, like please. And
I love that.
yeah, yeah. And I knew like from the jump, I felt so good about it, so excited to do it. And I didn't feel like that with like counseling or therapy or any of that. Um, and from just what she explained, like how like she shared with me her experience. I won't go into too much, but um, you know, she told me like how the rush of emotions came out and the tools you gave her to, work through her past traumas, and kind of like what to tell herself. And she said all those emotions came rushing out, and I was like, that's exactly what I need because they're holding in somewhere here, and I can't tell you where. So.
Yeah. And so like obviously part of what I do is based in energetics, right? It's that understanding how your energy is designed to work, and which is why I use human design, right? So you're a four
Mhm.
six projector. And so your story, when we connected, I was like, well, of course you feel this way, right? Like you already know because you're wise, you've been there, you've done that, you understand people on such a deep level, and you want other people to understand you on such a deep level. And you know, I think there's part of it where it's like, it's educating you about what are the strengths and the gifts of who are you designed to be, and then what's standing in the way of you being that person that you know you can be, but you're just not there yet. And so can you kind of describe um the experience of your session? So like what did you notice either like kind of going into it or while we were in those balances and then after? Kind of walk us through your experience going through it, because I think a lot of times it's difficult. It's even difficult for me to talk about the impact because it really is a felt physical experience and a very real grounded perception shift that happens, but it's like it's hard to articulate when you haven't gone through that experience. So I would love to hear how you witnessed that within yourself.
For sure, yeah. So, being like a week or so out from the session, um, what I could tell you is before the session, I know I was lacking the confidence, uh, and that played a huge part in everything. The confidence of, even my wife's depressed and she can't do things, like she still loves me, and I really believe that after the session because talking through it, it kind of gave me clarity on like, okay, the problem that she just took down has opened up a window to actually see things for what they are.
Mm.
And I hope I explained that in a
Yeah,
good
no,
way.
that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And same with being the person I wanted to be. I believed it deep down. I didn't have the confidence to say it out loud and really be that person.
Mm.
But I remember going back to, I can't remember what the strategy was called, but you had me kind of look down, put my hands out and say it and say it and say it. And I remember just getting this like tingly sensation and just like some sort of like higher power. That's the only thing I could think of. Just was like, okay, I'm like literally starting to believe this as we're doing it. And it like shocked me and it gave me goosebumps. And I was like, holy cow. And leaving that session, I was like, I am that person. Like I don't have to strive. That's who I am. Like, so if I can explain it to anybody, it basically knocked down the walls of whatever's holding you back. Like whatever was holding me back, it felt like I kicked the damn wall over and broke through. And I was like, holy shit, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That is
Yeah.
insane.
And it's funny because like everybody's first session that they go through, they'll go through like that first kind of transmuting the stress around a situation. And whenever they open their eyes, it's always like, what just happened? Right? It's like because it's an inward experience that no
Yeah,
one else is having except for you. And I'm just guiding you through it. But it's like it's so profound and so metaphysical almost. And for you, and this is, and I was really starting to kind of think about all of my different clients because they're all different walks of life, all just,
yeah,
different socioeconomic classes, all different races, all over the world. And the one thing that everyone has in common, and this isn't really where we start necessarily, but it always comes up, are those core attachment wounds from childhood that we don't think are showing up in our adult life, right? Like the situation with your wife and her postpartum depression triggered this abandonment that you experienced in childhood, and you felt like my person is gone, she's not there anymore, like, and then that made you turn to alcohol. And it's like this self-sabotaging almost, but not in a way that's purposeful. It's just that your inner wounds are now being activated by your external circumstance. And so can you talk a bit about that realization and about how you were able to maybe see this from a higher level perspective and really understand what was it in you that was triggered and needed to be healed?
for sure. Yeah. So, like you said, like being that feeling of abandonment from childhood, I never even put two and two together. Um, and I say this, it's nothing like, my wife, she went through a lot and it's not her fault. Like postpartum depression is a tricky thing and I didn't understand it. And I don't think a man could understand it, if that makes sense, because you don't go through it. You could try as hard as you want, but you're just not going to.
Yeah, you can
You
conceptualize it, but you can't really feel what it's like.
exactly. And when she was, more distant than usual, I thought, okay, she's abandoning me too. You know what I mean? Which was not the case.
Right.
And during our session, when we put myself back there in that moment, and I was like, wow, okay, this is making a lot more sense. A
Mhm.
lot more sense because both feelings were so familiar. Like the feeling I was getting with my wife and the feeling I was getting as a child were so similar. And it was amazing that like something way back then could affect you so far down the line.
Yeah.
And, going through that and afterwards, I tried thinking back just to like test it. I was like, let's test it. And it was almost like the person that went through it wasn't me. I felt like I was looking at it from so far away, and the person that it affected was so small. And I was like, oh yeah, it's not me now. So, that looks so small and it's so far away, and I don't have any attachment to it. Like I could just drop it out of my memory. Really, it was crazy. It was powerful. Like, and it's hard to explain in words,
I
but
know, I know. And this is why I do these interviews because everybody explains it a bit differently. And I think through the interview process and getting people's expression of it helps other people understand, it's
yeah,
like, and so, you know, it's funny because like you can't see the forest through the trees. And what people come to me for is to feel that quick relief that they're looking for, to get that perspective, but also to have that, like you said, like felt sense of confidence to be who you know you want to be and
Hmm.
not have to try so hard and have to struggle through it and try to work on being better. And, you know, and you kind of just mentioned it, like how you relate to those struggles now. It's almost like, and this is what I say a lot, is that we're not changing the past. The past is the past. It happened. Like
Hmm.
there's nothing we can do, like
Yeah.
besides, I guess, give you a coma or something so you forget about it. I don't know. But
Yeah.
like we're not changing what happened. We're changing how we relate to it, and we're changing our narrative around it, and we're changing our perspective around it, and we're releasing those emotional responses we get when we think about it or when we are triggered unconsciously into that experience, because our subconscious holds it and it always knows that it's under the surface. And like your wife going into postpartum depression triggered that abandonment wound, not that you were aware of it necessarily, but resolving that inner child wound. How are you relating now to yourself and to your wife and to your family? Like how is resolving that guilt and fear and emotional kind of distance that you were feeling? How has that impacted you now?
It's been a huge change. Like, I feel like every time I'm with my kids and I'm so present, just in that moment, like soaking it all up like you should be. It's changed like me and my wife completely. Like, she's still struggling, but the amount of energy I have to put towards the kids gives her that relaxation time, gives her that alone time, gives her that time to go get a massage or have, whatever she needs to do. And I'm okay with it. Before I was filled with guilt and I was so like depressed with,
Yeah.
being alone with the kids. Cause I'm like, you don't deserve me right now. I'm not who I need to be. But
Yeah.
now like it's all out the wind. It's all out of the window. Like it's like the best way to put it is I feel so much more present in the moment. And I really like cherish these moments now because I've never got to experience life like I am right now. It's crazy. Yeah.
That makes me so happy for
Yeah.
you.
It's
Because it
wild.
really is about experiencing the life you want to experience, right? And I think when you go through this, and truthfully, like, I mean, I think we were together, what, 60 or 90 minutes? I forget.
Yeah, it was a little over an hour.
Yeah. And so I think what's most mind-blowing for all of my clients is like these are things that people have dealt with for years and even decades. And within 60 minutes, like they're not
Yeah.
there anymore. And so I think I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway is like when we say that it's fast and effective, it's like within 60 minutes, you can unburden yourself from the things that you've been carrying for so long
Hmm.
and really step into your fullest potential of who you are and resolve those underlying emotional causes for the pain you're experiencing now. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I love hearing how it's shifted your kind of daily presence as a father and your ability to be that person for your family and to give your wife that space that she needs to heal. Because as we go through postpartum depression, like it's so much more compounded if we don't have a partner who can help us with the kids and we can't rest and we can't, it's like your healing can't start until you have the space. And it just makes me feel really like almost overwhelmed with emotion that like you are able to be that person and to help her in that way. And like, it's so big.
It is. And yeah, and I always wanted to be that person, but I couldn't. I was stuck, and it really like it really brought me like to the forefront basically, and just now I'm like so present, so clear, and just in it, and everyone's benefiting from it. My children are, my wife is, my work. Like I'm so productive at work too. It's like it's amazing.
I love that. So
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share about your experience, maybe aha moments, takeaways, any sort of perspectives for anyone who's maybe even dealing with something similar to yourself?
Um, it was amazing, first of all. Second of all, don't be afraid to try something new, because that new thing might be the thing you need. Um, and yeah, like honestly, the best way I can explain it is I had a wall that like I was hiding behind, and that one session literally took that wall, broke it down, kicked it through, threw it out, and it's like everything on the other side of that wall is so clear. It was amazing. Um, and also, I kind of wanted to say too, um, men typically bury their emotions. Like they have to be tough. They have to be, you know, there's an image of a man that's like built up that doesn't make sense, because if you're holding your emotions, if you're not taking care of your problems, you can't be a man for your family. You cannot be a man to your wife. You can't be a man to your kids. It needs, you need, like, it's hard to say it like this, but you like swallow your ego and do something about it, because it's not weak. It's not stupid. It's not, I don't know. Like a lot of people say they feel weak to get help. It's like, no, do it. That's not weak. That's strong. Like, let go of this image of how everyone painted an image of these men. Oh, we're strong. We don't need help. No, yeah, you do. Go do it, and you're going to be a better man after. That would be my one piece of advice, because a lot of men don't speak up, and they find it weak to talk about their feelings or ask for help or be vulnerable. It's not weak at all, and a lot of people will tell you that it's not weak at all. Like, just do it. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. Just put yourself out there, and it will be very rewarding.
Yeah, it's interesting because I look at it, it's like you have basketball coaches and you have weightlifting coaches and you have nutritionist coaches and you have teachers and you have all of these other coaches. But when it comes to your mental health, there's some sort of stigma of getting a coach about it. And it runs your entire fucking life. And it's like, that's the
Mm-hmm.
one coach you should have. Like, because it
100%.
impacts every area of your life. Like you just mentioned, like it impacts your parenthood, it impacts your relationship with your wife, it impacts you at work. Like, and dealing with it from a subconscious level allows you to step into the best version of yourself and to be that safe masculine energy that holds space for other people and that doesn't take out their wounds on other people. And I just did a post the other day about that wounded masculine. And we all have wounded masculine. I literally had a session for myself this morning where I worked through mine, right? Like we
Yeah.
all have it. But the problem with that wounded masculine is that it almost goes into self-protection mode and this almost energy of war. But what happens is like we have war within ourselves, and then that comes out and creates distance and war in our relationships. And then that it spills out into like continuing this perpetuation of trauma and societal conditioning. And like we, it makes me excited, especially you as a line 6 projector. It's like you really are here to be the role model and the guide for like we need to redefine what masculinity really is, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you could agree, like after this session and being able to show up in a safe and present, joyful way for your family, I would imagine, I'm not male, but like I would imagine that feels really fucking strong and masculine. Like that's like, holy shit, this is my role. Like, am I like articulating
100%. 100%. Before, like, my idea of a man was you work hard, you drink hard, you take care of your problems that way, whatever.
stuff it down?
Uh, that yeah, that it's like, so like, if like I wish I could have like looked forward and been like, look at, this is what it's supposed to look like,
Yeah.
not this. And it's like I feel like society is so like they lean just so far like one way, and it's just, this is how men deal with their problems, and that's it. And everyone believes, I even believed it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not the case. Like, holy cow, that's so far from the truth. It's ridiculous.
So what
And
are, I would love to kind of explore that with you for a second. Like, what are the new truths that you know now, kind of being in this version of yourself versus who you were before? Like, what are those truths of masculinity? Like, what does that actually need to look like in order for us? Because I have a belief that we need to heal this wounded masculine. It's not just imperative for people like yourself to heal it for yourself, because it's it impacts everything, right? It impacts our families, it impacts our children, it impacts our wives, it impacts our friends, it impacts our communities, it impacts our companies. And so as we heal this wounded masculine, we become healthier individuals, but also healthier societies. And so
mhm,
what are your new truths, and what does that healthy, healed masculinity look like?
it's it's showing up for your kids, being the father that's always there, that's not hungover and too tired to do anything with them. Being there for your wife emotionally, physically, and doing what you can to make her life easier. Because this is one thing I look back on. I'm like, you literally birthed both my children. Like, you deserve the world. Like that's huge. Like, you gave birth to both of my children and carried them. Like, I couldn't repay you for that. And before, I wouldn't have thought like that.
Yeah.
That's masculine to me. Taking care of your kids, taking care of your family, creating a safe, healthy environment for your family to live in. And now that I have this knowledge I learned from you, it's gonna and like, you literally showed me the way. It's now it doesn't stop with just me. It's a ripple effect. It's gonna trickle down to my wife, my kids, their kids. It's that's how they're gonna be raised. And you know, beforehand, I was like, okay, I need my alone time, and let's booze it up or whatever. And then, once I feel not crappy in the morning, then I'll do something. I'll do something for them. What's masculine about that? That's You look cool up to the people at the bar. Wow. What about your family at home that's sitting there and your wife's struggling? Like, that's not masculine to me.
Yeah.
Masculine is stepping up to the plate and taking care of you and yours. And that's literally where I'm at. And it feels amazing.
I love that so much. I want to
Yeah.
kind of dig in a little bit more to this idea of safe, because you mentioned, and I think a lot of people have this idea that men are providers, and that they're here to keep us safe, right? But this idea of safety, I think we need to also reframe. It's not just safety from an intruder. This is
No, no.
like safety, emotional, spiritual, physical safety. And
Yeah.
as you do this work, I mean, it naturally happens, right? Like, you weren't
Mhm.
going into the session. We didn't do any specific balances about being a safe father, husband, whatever, but it's a natural consequence of doing that healing, is that
Yep.
you're able to create an environment that is supportive and safe in all levels of safety. And I'd love to hear your perspective of, if you looked at your family prior to our sessions, what about that version of your family looks different today? Like,
Yeah. And
comes to the safety of the family unit prior to you doing your work.
for sure. Yeah. So before, when I was talking about safety, I was talking, you hit the nail on the head with it. Um, Beforehand, bringing up an issue or bringing up a problem or bringing up a concern would cause me to be snappy, be in a bad mood. So everyone on the outside is looking at that. The kids are looking at that. My wife is, oh, we can't share our true emotion because dad's going to get mad or he's going to get upset or whatever.
Mhm.
And what's changed dramatically is, the kids, like, if whatever it is, if they come to you and they're like, oh, I did this, I'm so sorry, they actually come to you and tell you now because they feel safe to tell you. They
Yeah.
feel like,
They're
okay,
not going
I
to
can
get in
tell.
trouble.
Yeah, I can tell my dad I messed up without him being mad. My wife can come to me and tell me any emotion she's having and actually be able to tell me that. And, you know, we're still working on it because she's so used to the old me that she's with
Yeah.
for 8 years. Now she's like,
Who is this
oh,
new
yeah.
person?
Or like, I think she's still afraid to like fully say things. And she's
Yeah.
like still testing the waters a little bit. But you know, now I can literally tell her like anything you tell me, you know, I'm here for you. Like we'll
Yeah.
talk through it. I'm not going to snap at you. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm not going to ignore you.
Yeah.
Like this is a safe space. Like it's okay. It's okay now. And that's what we're working on right now. So
Yeah.
that's what a safe environment looks like.
Creating that new reality, it sounds like it's almost because it's true, like when you do this work, it's like you know that you're a different version of. I was actually joking because like I got kind of snappy with John yesterday about, funny story, about there was this like really awesome musician and he did this like mashup where he like records all the music and sings and whatever, and it was like two Taylor Swift songs. And like I found myself, what I heard him say
Uh,
was not what he said, but what I heard him say was he's better than Taylor Swift. And that made me angry. And I was like, he wouldn't be able to do what he does without Taylor Swift, you know, like this whole like energy around it, which triggered him, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so I resolved that today. I didn't even fucking realize like that was my wounded masculine coming out, being wanting credit for that feminine, right? Taylor Swift
Yeah.
represents this very strong feminine energy and it's like give her fucking credit, right? But that was my wound expressing in this really weird way. And I resolved it literally just before our call. And I was joking that like John's going to come home and he wants to have a conversation about it. And I was like, that was me 3 hours ago. That's not me now. Like
Yeah.
when we do this work, it's like we know that we are different. We see and we experience our internal responses in those moments so differently. And we know that we're showing up in a different way. But to your point, your wife is still like, is this, are you really, because we've been conditioned over time with
Uh-huh.
relationships, right? It's like, well, that's not how you normally respond. And now I'm anticipating how you normally respond. And so therefore I'm kind of holding back because I haven't felt safe to express myself. I haven't felt safe that you were going to support me. I haven't felt like I could tell you something and feel like I'm going to receive that love, that help, that emotional support, right? And
Yep.
so I love how you phrase that because it's like when we do this work, it does ripple out and it allows us to brick by brick build that new foundation. And it's
Hmm.
you are now building this new stronger foundation for yourself, but also for your relationships and your family, and being a role model for what true, balanced, healthy masculinity looks like. What does it look like to be a real man? A real man allows for a mood and emotions and not feel anger and aggression and frustrated where everybody has to tiptoe around you to like make sure you're not
Yeah.
going to explode, you know? And so
Yep.
it's so beautiful. And I give you kudos for doing it because we
Thank
need
you.
more men like that, right? Like I mentioned, when men heal, it heals our families.
100%. It's true. It really is. And I'm still new to it too. So it's like I'm in it right now and I'm loving it.
So
It's
what would you say to other men? How would you invite them into up-leveling who they are and not taking it from a place of shame and guilt, like you like how would you invite them in a way that kind of dispels that they should be holding any sort of shame or guilt about it?
well, that's a good question. I from the way I look at it is men are told we have to look strong literally all the time. Like I don't know where it comes from. It's just the way the world has been. Um, it's literally okay to like let that image go. A lot of men I know are afraid of what people are going to think.
Mhm.
Um, but it to me, like, wouldn't you want to like what you would choose feeling like a real man rather than feel hurt just because what people think of you. People's opinions, I've learned through my like little journey I've been on so far. Um, put it nicely, you can't give a shit about outside opinions, because what that does is that's like these people have a rope that's tied around your waist and they're pulling you backwards when really you should be being pushed forward. And let go of your ego and let go of this image of what a man is supposed to look like, and you will become what a man is supposed to look like. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can put it. It's so hard to like really put in words, but it's
And
just like,
it gives me this idea that leadership comes to mind.
yeah.
And when you do that work and you let go of what other people maybe will perceive you as weak or whatever those stories are, when you let go of that and you stand in your true power and you heal yourself and you become confident in who you are and you become balanced and happy and joyful and safe, that inspires other men and you become the leader who is admired.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I think most men, most people, I think, want to be admired. They want to feel like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, show me how to be that person. And that's what you're doing. And so, you mentioned kind of showing up in your community and sharing your story and I see it really shifting the tides for men and those men that are stepping into this and that are willing to do this work. Like, you are the strong men. This is what strength looks like. This is what leadership looks like. It looks like, this whole pull your bootstraps up thing. But it's like
Yeah.
really like taking inventory of your life. How are you showing up? What are you doing? How are you coping? How are you relating? Is that who you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not,
Exactly.
and you feel stuck and you feel like there's a wall, there's a really easy way to overcome it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's like, so I'm excited. I mean, this month I've had more men clients than I have in 2 years. So
That's awesome. That's
it's
awesome.
really beautiful because, and I think also it's kind of stemmed with this political cycle, and we're seeing really unsafe men in our
Yeah.
environment. And it's like everybody's like, that's not safe. We don't feel safe, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's starting I think it's really starting to drudge up like how society views masculinity and strength and leadership. And I think we're all taking that inventory and really assessing what kind of world do we actually want to live in? Because the wounded masculine, again, affects everything, right? Like, it's not just they self-abuse, they abuse our children and our women, and they assert their power with dominance. And that's not a safe masculine man.
Mm-mm. Not
And
at all.
it's really beautiful that you are on that role model side and on modeling this new kind of confident safety. That's
For
how I see
sure.
it. It's a kind of a confident safety, and other people feel that, right? They feel safe in your presence when you are a safe person and you believe that you can hold all of it and that you're not going to judge them, you're not going to get mad at them. They feel safer in your presence. And then that builds the bonds that I think most men really want, is to feel close with people. They want to
Mm-hmm.
feel admired. They want to feel close. They want to feel connected. They want to be able to share their own experiences without judgment, but they can't do that if they haven't done it for themselves.
Yeah. You gotta want it
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
for sure.
So,
100%.
any other final words? I just really appreciate your willingness and your interview and you to be able to share this story with people, because I think people can really resonate. And yeah, so is there anything that you would like to end on?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell everyone about you. So, um,
I
yeah, I
appreciate
mean,
that. I feel
yeah,
like we need more healing in the world, so I'll take
for
it.
sure, for sure. Yeah, and if anyone's on the fence and thinking, yeah, maybe I'll do it or not, do it. It's a game changer, and you're gonna be happy you did, for
I
sure.
love it. I'm so
For sure.
proud of you, and I really look forward to seeing how this kind of unfolds and this new reality that you're creating. And my mission, I'm really for the individuals, but in the way that this impacts family units and children, because
Yeah.
children are not designed in the way that our grandparents were. They really require more and more safety, and
Yeah,
up to us to do that work and to become those safe places. So kudos
for
to you.
sure. Thank you. Thank you.
It was
And thank you
lovely
again. That was
chatting.
amazing.
You're welcome. Let me know if there's anything else that I can help you with. And I hope that anyone watching this interview, you know, can take something away from it and can really start to analyze and maybe take that self inventory in their life to say, like, you know, maybe it's not alcohol that they're coping with. Maybe it's shopping or spending money or eating, or like I mentioned, you know, exercise can be one of those things. Anything that we're doing to kind of numb out our feelings, and do we really want to do that, or can we peacefully and easily kind of move through it without having to cope in the ways that maybe aren't so constructive. So
For sure. That's
love
awesome.
it. Thank you so much, Billy. And then we
No
will see
problem.
you
Thank
later.
you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.